Hi everybody and welcome to today's live session with YD special edition. Are you a working mother or a father? Have you ever felt you're neglecting your health while taking care of your loved ones, you've neglected your health both physically and emotionally? Do you ever feel exhausted? Are you one of those parents who feels guilty? You go to work and you feel extremely guilty that you've left your child at home and you've not been there for her. Or you feel that everything around you is like very bad, the bad things happening around you and it's only happening to you. Well, you're at the right place and I'm glad you've logged in and you're with us, because today we've collected for the past few days actually we've collected a few questions revolving around parenting and different other questions revolving around parenting, and we'll be discussing that today. I'm Uthista Thota. I'm a psychologist and a psychotherapist. I've been working in the field for about 7 years and I've been practicing. I specialize in child psychology, so it is my pleasure to be answering these questions here today. The first question I've got is, I often work late and weekends. I constantly feel guilty of not spending enough time with my daughter. How can I make sure she does not resent me for this, and how can I strike a better balance? Now, I think most of y'all working mothers and fathers, I think most of y'all have had this question in the past, where you feel guilty. You're at the workplace and you're constantly feeling guilty that what is my child doing at home, or is she eating, or is she playing, and that fear is always going to be there when you're at work. What I would suggest is you strike a better balance, that you have a schedule, that you know that from 9 in the morning till 5 in the evening you're at work and that is your schedule. You've chosen to go back to work and that is something which needs to fit into your schedule, that you're working and that your child is going to be taken care of at home. Because the moment you're going to get into this negative thought process of thinking that something is happening at home, it's only going to make you feel a lot worse and you wouldn't be very productive at the workplace. So I would suggest, like I said, having a better schedule, and not, whenever you have these negative thoughts, to consciously make an effort to think why you've gone back to work, and that you have a setup at home. You have a setup, you have a support system at home where your child is being taken care of. The second part of the question was, how can I make sure she does not resent me for this, and how you could strike a better balance. Now when you talk, I do not know how old your daughter or your son is, but your daughter is. But I would suggest that you have an open discussion. That there is a space, there is a safe space where you have an open conversation with your daughter, asking her what she likes or what she doesn't like about you working, or the late nights you work and the weekends where you work. Because I'm sure that during the day you might be with her, you might be spending time with her, but talking to your daughter about what she likes and what she doesn't like, and assuring her that obviously that you love her unconditionally, but at the same time making sure that there is a schedule, that she's aware that my mom goes to work at a certain time, like how I go to school, my mom goes to work and I come back and then my mom is there, or if she's not there, that there is someone else there to take care of her. So she needs to have that safe space and feel loved and have that support and a safe sphere where she knows that she's not being left alone. So the second question we've got is, whenever I scold my kids, it seems to have little effect. How can I discipline my children without physically hurting them? Now, I think this is a very common problem which most parents face, especially if you're working. When you're at work and you have your own pressures at the workspace, then you come back home, then you have your family pressures, and then if you have a toddler, if you have a child who's asking for attention because this child hasn't seen you the entire day and then suddenly sees you and wants to share whatever's happened during the day, what happens is most parents feel very irritated, in the sense they don't want to talk, or they just want that me time. You get some time for yourself to relax and then attend to your child. But being a child, the child is not going to understand that, and most often than not what happens is the child gets irritated and snaps at the child, and the parent gets irritated and snaps at the child feels really bad, and then it goes on to this vicious circle where the parent feels very guilty about it. Now, or the second option is most parents either to just get rid of the child, give them one spank, and then that's something, or scold them. Now I would suggest that hitting, in theory, hitting or scolding does not work with a child. How much ever you scold them or hit them, it's only going to deteriorate and it's not going to make the child feel good about themselves. So I would suggest that when you come back home, take some time off for yourself, get some time to calm yourself down, to relax, then attend to your child's needs. The best way you could discipline your child without hitting them is by talking to them, or by also it's more of a psychological conditioning where you say that these are the rules of the house, you do this and the consequences of your actions will be this. So for example, let's say a child really likes to watch the TV, but you also know that the child also knows that TV time is only for 1 hour in a day. So it depends, as a parent, you talk to your child and divide that 1 hour during the day into periods, so that the child knows that she or he is only allowed that 1 hour, and these are the bits of time he's chosen with you where he's allowed to watch television. If in case that doesn't work, and there is a tantrum with toddlers, generally that's what happens, there is tantrum throwing and there's misbehaving which happens, you need to lay the rules and the consequences of their behavior. So you say that if you do this, the consequence will be that your TV time will be taken out. So you have 1 hour today, but you will not have 1 hour, you will only have 10 minutes because you have misbehaved. When I said no to something, you still went against my wish, you misbehaved and you threw a tantrum. So that is a better way of dealing with disciplining in children generally. So there is an action, there is a behavior which happens, then there's an action, there's a consequence to that behavior. So the child needs to know this. The third question which we've got is, my kid often cries when I leave for the office in the morning. How can I ensure that he does not feel abandoned? Now again, like the first question, I think as parents and as when related with the child, you need to set clear boundaries and a schedule where the child knows that mama and papa go to office, they work and they come back by a certain time. How you go to school and you play and you study and you come back to school, just like that, both of us are working. You need to make these things clear to the child in a healthy way. Have a healthy conversation over dinner and just make sure that you tell the child this. But for toddlers, generally it's found between the ages of 1 to 3, and most mothers who are on maternity leave, who have to get back to work, find it extremely difficult during this phase when they have children from 1 to 3 years, because a toddler is not going to understand a schedule, or when you tell them that there is this schedule which we follow, and because a toddler doesn't even start school. So most kids at that age have separation anxiety. So separation anxiety generally comes down. I mean, it reduces at the age of 3, but there are still some children who have separation anxiety. So separation anxiety is when the child feels extremely anxious when he or she knows that you're leaving to work. They start crying, they have a tantrum. Some of them have physical symptoms like they have vomiting, or they have nausea, they have headaches, and it just suddenly comes up when they know that the parent or the caregiver, whoever it is leaving out of home and they're going to work or something. The child generally behaves in such a way. So when you know that this is happening, easing the situation or calming the situation, the best way is to stay back for those extra few minutes, calm the child down, plan a schedule so that the child has a busy day, and make sure that the child understands this. Even if it's a toddler, then there is another caregiver, there is a second caregiver who is there to take that place. The next question is, my daughter often asks me why I have to work when other moms stay at home with their kids. What can I do to make her understand? I think in this sort of a situation, what best can happen is you have a conversation with your daughter, and like I said, tell them that this is what you've been doing. You've been working, the father has been working, you have been working from a very long time. And like how other mothers do other things at home, they go to pick their children up from school, or they take care of the well-being of the house. This is something you do. You go to office, you work, and you come back. So this is something you'll have to talk to your daughter and make her understand in an age-appropriate way. So if it's someone who's a 5-year-old, you cannot explain to them in a mature way, because they might not understand. So for a 5-year-old, you'll have to break it down and make it clear that everyone has roles. So you can, for example, take on a role that the best way to make them understand is, you can tell a 5-year-old, you go to school, you go to study, you play, and you come back. As a parent, as a mother, as a parent, you go to office, you work, and you come back. Other mothers go to school, pick their children up, they do other things. Like her teacher, maybe you can give an example of her teacher as well. Her teacher might have a child. she comes to school to take care of all of you, which includes your own daughter in the classroom. So you can give her different explanations like this for her to better understand that everyone has a role and they do these things, and that's how it works. It doesn't have to be that two people do the same thing, or just because one person is doing something doesn't mean that the other person has to do the same thing. It can be different. So you can make it sound that it is nice to work, and it is nice to work, and this is what makes you happy, but at the same time give her an explanation that different people take on different roles. The next question we've got is, my son is entering adolescence. I want to impart sexual education to him. How do I do so without making it embarrassing for the both of us? What I would suggest again in this case is, when it comes to sexual education, I think sexual education is something which has to be spoken to in a very sensitive and open way. It depends on which age the child is. As a parent, I think age appropriately you need to explain and make the child understand. So for a toddler, generally when we talk about sexual education, now they do it in schools even, where you just talk about body parts, what your body parts are, and just for awareness of how your body looks. For someone at 8 to 10 years, let's say 8 to 10 years is another milestone where children have other big questions like how do people make babies, or where do babies come from? There are questions like that. So sexual education just does not revolve around talking about sex, but it is about awareness of the person's body. So at 8 to 10 years, most people are worried about how they look and how other people look and how boys look. So you can talk to them in a sensitive way regarding that. Now, because your child in this case is in adolescence, because in adolescence, children are much more aware. They're much more aware of their bodies. They're much more aware of how other, like it can be female or male, how they look. Attraction happens. People are more willing to get into relationships, talk about relationships. It needs to be known to the child that it is safe to talk about these things at home. And as a parent, I think, like I said before, age appropriately. That the best way you can convey the same thing is age appropriately what is sensitive. And as best as father or mother, I think you'll be the best to analyze your child and understand how they best can understand the situation, or how sensitive they are to these things. So I would suggest that you try this at home. The next question is, I want my child to be able to trust me implicitly, but as she is growing, we are drifting further apart. How can I make her believe that she can confide anything in me? Firstly, I'd like to say that most parents think that they want to be friends with their children after a certain age, and there is nothing wrong about it. The problem is when that line between am I a friend to my child or am I a parent? A mother is always going to be a mother, a father is always going to be a father. How much ever you'd like to be a friend, when children get into their teens, I've heard a lot of parents saying that, I'm your friend, you should share things with me. It is nice and it is healthy. But at the end of the day, for a child, you're more of a parent figure. They would consider you as a friend, but you, at the end of the day, you're a parent figure. So they might have those little, secrets where they don't want to talk about something, or they don't want to share something, and that's fine. But you, at home, from your end, I think you should make a space at home where the environment is such that the child feels free enough to come and talk to you about something big happening in their lives. And also when you talk to them, just demarcate which are big issues in someone's life or which are small issues, and tell them that these can be different. So for one child, maybe you have 2 kids. For the older one, maybe these things might look very trivial, but for the younger one, these things might be something which is life-changing for them. So give them that respect and that space where they have that, where they're free enough to come and talk to you in a healthy way and tell you that, Amma, that there is this issue and I don't know what to do about it. Or at the same time, role modeling. As a parent, most children learn from their parents. Most children are carbon copies of their parents. It is the environment in which they're growing. So as a parent, maybe you can also come, when you're having dinner at the table, say that, oh, today at the office, if it's a 5-year-old, say that, oh, today was, it wasn't a great day, it was a bad day because something like this happened. It's an issue which is troubling me. It's a big issue, but I'm dealing with it. And maybe sharing your stories with the child also will help. The next question we've got is, my son spends most of his time in front of the television or laptop. I want him to explore other physical activities. How can I get him excited for other activities? This is again a very common problem which most parents face, especially in the era which we are living. Technology has grown so much, society around us has changed so much that most kids are confined to their houses. They've become couch potatoes. They are either in front of the TV or gaming, or it's everything indoor. And then social networking doesn't help again, because everyone either wants to be on Facebook or on Twitter or Instagram, and it's not very healthy. So I think as a parent, what you could do is inculcate other healthy habits. So when I say other healthy habits, if it's a working day, during weekdays, I understand that's very difficult for both working parents or parents in general who aren't working as well, and children, that this is the timetable we follow. We go to school, we come back. Maybe having activities after school, like having physical activities like playing tennis or going for a dance class or playing football or something like that. Try exposing your child to different activities. You never know what your child might like. I've seen most parents give that, have that, take that extra step, go that extra milestone and expose the child, but the child is very disinterested and doesn't want to continue, and then the parent feels bad that, oh, I've exposed my child to football, I want him to go play football, but he's gone for one class and he stopped playing. What I would suggest is, if it's football, talk about football, get some enthusiasm, make it exciting for him, put him in football classes, and also let him continue the class at least for about 21 days, I would say. So 21 days is when, if you start anything new, a new habit you inculcate by yourself, it takes 21 days for any person for it to become a habit. So for 21 days, if a child is going for the football or a dance class or any other extracurricular activity, let them stick for those 21 days and see how they're settling in. If they still don't like it, then obviously you can change the sport or the activity, but getting them outdoors, putting them in classes, other extracurricular for physical activity as such, will definitely help. The other thing I would say is, cutting down on television and gaming is something which you and your partner, so both father and mother, have to consciously make an effort that there is a time limit in the house, that everyone gets to sit and watch TV, be it the news or be it what the kids want to watch, maybe 1 hour in the day. Now that one hour in the day can be broken up in bits and pieces how you want to watch it, but that is something you need to negotiate with your child. You need to negotiate that you have 1 hour in the day where you can use your laptop, or you can use your gaming console, and you want to have some gaming fun, then you can cut that time, that 1 hour, into bits and pieces, and make sure that this is followed at the house. Both father and mother have to be on the same page when you're inculcating this in the child. The next question we've got was, I feel exhausted all the time and I feel like I need some time off from my parenting duties. Does this make me a bad mother? Like I said, firstly, it doesn't make you a bad mother. It doesn't make you a bad father. It does not make you a bad caregiver. Whoever it is, be it mother or father. You are human after all. Only when you take care of yourself and your well-being, both physically and mentally, can you attend to someone else, be it your children or grandparents in the house or anybody else. You are important first and then anybody else, because if you're not in that zone where you're happy or there's something troubling you deeply, you're going to be very irritated, and that's going to spill over into your family life as such. I would say that you take some time off. So when you've asked me that you feel exhausted all the time, and I think it's but natural for you to take some time off. Take some time off from parenting duties. Go out for a meal or go for a movie. Do something which excites you and keeps you happy. It can be a hobby you've picked up, or inculcate a hobby where you have some me time. You do something for yourself, and it's very important. It's not that you're a bad person or a bad mother, because as I had mentioned before, it is very vital that you're happy, your well-being and your wellness, your mental well-being is of importance, and only then can you take care of your children and carry off your other parenting duties. The next question we've got is, how do I ensure I am not being overly protective of my child? So let me put it out there that you can never be sure about how protective you're going to be about your child. As a parent, it's an inherent, it's an instinct, it's a mother's instinct to be protective about their child. So you cannot draw a line and say that, okay, maybe I'm being a little protective or overly protective. You can never judge that very clearly. But I would say that, which I've always told my, when I've had clients and parents generally, is let your child grow. Let your child grow in a safe environment. Let him fall, let him get hurt. It is always good for the child to be, exposed to both failures in life and success. So it is only through that will they mold into better human beings and learn from their mistakes. So if you're going to be one of those helicopter parents, when they say that, you're always hovering around your child, before the child takes one step, you're like 10 steps ahead just to make sure that they don't fall. Don't do that. Let the child fall. Let them get hurt and let them know that, oh, okay, if I do this, then you get hurt. So let them learn from that failure, and that is going to help them in the future. So I would suggest that don't overly think about it as well. Don't overly think about it. Give it room, and let go of your child at some point. You do, all parents find this very difficult, I understand, but you need to let go of your child at some point and start that at home. Start that at home when you're making decisions, depending on the age. Make decisions with them. Let them be a part of decision making. So going back to the same question, how do you ensure that you're not overly protective? Like how different children, all children are not the same. They're all different in their own way. Parenting styles are also different. So your parenting style compared to your husband's, your partner's parenting style can be very different. Some people, so your past experiences, your behavior, your temperament as a person will affect the way you parent your child. So for an example, I've had couples where the father is overly protective and overly nice to the children, whereas the mother is extremely strict and is either scolding or hitting the children. And for most children it is like, oh, my mother's the bad person and my dad is the good person, or there's this role reversal which happens. That shouldn't be the case, because in any healthy upbringing, one parent should be a little docile and the other one should be laying the rules. There should be rules in the house. But whenever you're taking decisions where your children are concerned, or for the family, both partners, both husband and wife, have to be on the same page. So coming back to parenting and being overly protective of your child, which was the question we had answered initially, there are 4 different parenting styles. So there is an authoritarian style where the child knows that this is how it is in the house, and it is very strict and these are the rules, and if I do anything, if I'm not obedient, I'll get punished. It's a very let me put it this way, it's a very dictatorship sort of, like Hitler, that you say that if this is not done, then you're punished. So that is an authoritarian sort of style. There is an authoritative style which is a mid-base, where it's a middle ground where you enforce the rules and the child knows the consequences of those rules you have set. So initially in the beginning of this QA session, when we were talking, I had talked about setting rules and the consequences of the behavior, the actions of the child's actions. We are talking about that, where you set the rules and the child knows what the consequences are. If you don't do this, then your TV time will be taken out. It is not very strict like the authoritarian sort of parenting style, but it's a little more mild. There is another one which is called the permissive sort of parenting style, where the child thinks of the parent more of as a friend, and there are no rules and there are no boundaries, and that is when most parents have this back talk which happens. So you're out in a public space and you said no to your child, and the child thinks it's absolutely okay to talk back to the parent and say that if you're not going to do this, then I don't want to do this. And this starts from a very young age, from toddlers are very from the time they've come into the world, they start being a little manipulative just to meet their needs. So you as a parent need to enforce rules and know the consequences, and the child needs to know the consequences of that, rather than being permissive where you say that you're my friend and you can be however you like. It's drawing the line too close. So that is one sort of parenting style. And the last is a very uninvolved parent, like where the parent is not really concerned about the well-being of the child, where the parent does not know how to do and what to do. Then I think it's better to seek help, get some help to figure out how best to parent your child. And when I say this, it does not mean that you don't need to put yourself in any of these buckets of parenting styles, but it is just to give you a background as to that different parents are different. Just because I parent my child in a different way does not make your child, your parenting skills to be bad or good. Every parent parents their child in a different way, and that's how it should be. The next question we have is, both me and my wife are working. Should I leave the job or her? What will people think if I stay at home? I think, in this era, both the husband and wife are working, and I don't think either should leave their job unless it's bigger circumstances and the situation forces you where, one parent has to be there at home to take care of the child. It's perfectly fine if, I've seen a lot of households where they have either grandparents, maternal or paternal grandparents at home taking care of the child, where the father and mother are working, and that's absolutely fine. But as an individual, as a mother more so, if you're feeling very guilty and you're not able to be productive at work, it's affecting your career, where you go to work every day in the morning, but there's a tug of heart in the mornings, when you leave your child at school, and then there's that initial few minutes of crying, and you can overcome that, then that's absolutely fine, because your child is going to get used to it. Children that way are just amazing, because they mold according to the situation. You leave the child at daycare or you leave the child in school, the initial few days is a little difficult, but eventually they fit in absolutely fine. But having said that, there are children who don't settle in well. There are parents who have, it's a heartache every day to go to work, and they're not able to concentrate at work, they're not able to be productive. Then in that case, I would suggest that your partner and yourself sit down and talk what best can be made out of the situation, and who can be at a stay-at-home mom or dad. I think times are changing. I've seen a lot of couples where both husband and wife are very supporting of each other's careers, where if they have had a child, then I've seen stay-at-home dads as well, and they're doing an amazing job. So whatever works for you as a family, your family unit, whatever works for you and your partner and the family as a whole in a healthy way, I think you should take a decision. Please don't compare. I've seen a lot of this also happen, that you come under societal pressure that a woman is only supposed to do this, or it's a very gender stereotyped role where the man is only supposed to do this. It is not like that. Let's give men also a chance to bring up children for a change. You never know, maybe the kids might turn out to be amazing and they'll do a really good job. So whatever, again, like I said, whatever works for you all, please go ahead and execute that as a family unit. The next question we have is, my son often gets bullied at school and in the school bus. I'd like for him to stand up for himself, but I do not know exactly what to tell him or teach him. So I would say that I think bullying is a very huge issue at schools or generally outside as well. If someone is getting bullied, I would suggest that you look out for symptoms of the bullying which is happening either at school or at the bus or at the playground. Make sure you talk to the child about what is happening, and if it is crossing a limit where there is harm being done, there is either harm being done physically or emotionally. Some children do get emotionally very scarred for life because they're being bullied about their weight or the way they look. Then I would suggest that you talk to the school. There will be a counselor for the school. Most schools do have a counselor, or if you don't find a counselor at the school, please do seek help where there is a counselor available. You talk to them, and the child talks to them, and there is this healthy conversation which happens, and you can control the bullying to a certain extent. But when it is, like I said, if it's going overboard, I would suggest that you step in and take things under control by talking to someone, because there's always supposed to be a mediator. When there is a mediator during these sort of conversation, it helps the situation. You can ease the situation. So at the same time, there are different types of bullies in school. You have kids who bully. There are kids who support the bully and don't do anything about it. So as a parent, you know your child better than anyone. So I think you should talk to your child and understand what the situation is before you step in. So there is a thin line. You need to judge the situation. You cannot be a helicopter parent where you see your child getting hurt one day and then you decide that, okay, I have to go talk to the school principal and the children who said this to my child. Don't do that, because what happens is sometimes when you do that, your child kind of feels alienated from class, because all the children in the class might think, oh, because we've said one thing, this child has gone and complained to his mother and he's brought his mother to talk to us. So don't do that. I want you to understand the situation, find out from your child exactly what is happening, how long has it been happening, and there's any physical harm which has been done, like hitting or pinching or throwing things at each other. If anything of that sort, then I would suggest, yes, you do step in and take the precautionary measures which you need to take. The last question we've got for today is, my kids don't have the same respect for me like I had for my parents. Am I raising them well? I would like to say that that I think in the olden days, our grandparents or my grandparents have brought children up in a very different way. The circumstances and the situation and the world around them was very different. Today the world is very different. It has changed drastically. Be it technology, be it child rearing or parenting styles, it is very different. So I would say that when your child is disrespecting you, or they're not talking to you in the way you want them to talk to you, or they're talking back, I think you should correct your child. Be it any parent, I think you should correct your child. Both mother and father should lay the rules and make sure that the child understands that they cannot talk back. Some level of trust should be gained from the child, and where you sit them down and talk to them and tell them that this is allowed and this is not allowed. Talking back is very disrespectful to parents. And it's the same way when you talk to your child, when you're correcting them, please don't shout at them or hit them or call them derogatory things. Don't say things like that, because it's the same thing. It's one side. The way you behave with your child, the child is going to behave exactly the same with you. So if you're more calm and you can explain to them in a healthy way, in a polite way, take them into confidence and tell them that this is not how it's supposed to be done, they will understand. Eventually they will understand and they will learn to. And if at all this happens in public, I've seen a lot of parents outside in public. You're at a dinner party and then your child is throwing a tantrum and you've said no, and they're throwing a tantrum and then they start talking back to you. You need to either take them aside and tell them that this is not how it's supposed to be done, this is not how you talk to me, and things are supposed to be corrected at that point of time. Don't let the child behave throughout the party like that, then go back home and then probably you're tired, you sleep it off and then you forget about it. You need to correct the child when the mistake is happening and make sure that it doesn't repeat again. So maybe when you're at the party, just give him or her a warning or a talk saying that this is not allowed. When you go back home, within closed doors in your house, you need to sit the child down and explain to them that this is not allowed, that talking back is very disrespectful, this is not something you would like if your child spoke to you, and this is not how your child would like it if you spoke to them. So you need to make that very clear to them. With this final question, we've come to the end of our session. Thank you so much for attending this live session with your dost. If we haven't attended, if I haven't spoken about any of the questions you've written to us, or I've missed out on any of the questions you've written to us, we will definitely write back to you on your email ID. Before we leave, before we sign off, I'd like to say that I would like to reinforce actually that it is extremely vital that you take care of your health. Your physical and mental well-being is of vital importance before you take care of others, because you have a lot of other responsibilities. Taking care of yourself is extremely important. And if you do find issues in parenting, or where your child is concerned, or any related issues, please feel free to talk to us. Our website is www.yourdost.com. So you will definitely come onto our website and you can connect with one of our parenting experts. Thank you so much.